Mondays with the Mako. We are back at it. A bit of a delay from week to week, but we have reached the seventh interview and we are at the conclusion of the interview series. So thanks for hanging with me. And I wanted to thank everybody for their contributions, the audience, the feedback, the critique. The guys in Group 1, you guys have been just strong. Alistair bringing it on purpose. Matt coming at us with the power of failure. Chris talking about sport and the connection of faith there and his two amazing daughters. And then David bringing some awesome energy on leadership and developing others. And then Dr. Fine on wellness and health and bringing that into your cadence and sustaining that. And then Gareth remastering some amazing content and burning the boats again with us. I'm lucky to have Townsend Saunders to wrap this thing up with me. Dear friend of mine, somebody that's taken time to personally develop the shark when I was a young pup at the Apollo Group. And Townsend is a complete champion. He's a two-time Olympian. He's an ASU Hall of Fame member and a two-time All-American wrestler there. He's won the Pan Am Games twice in 91 and 95, and he's also won the Goodwill Games in 1994, and he's got a slew of other titles and championships along the way. So Townsend, brother, thank you for spending your time with the Mako and for getting Monday Night Football tonight.
No, thanks for having me, Mark. It certainly is an honor to be here and be a part of your extensive crew, people that you've had on your show. So it's a pleasure.
Thanks, Town. Well, let's get right into it because I know you want to get back to your family and finish the game. Tell me a little bit about your wrestling journey, starting off as a young wrestler, not really knowing what you were doing with it, I guess, and kind of finding your way.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm originally from the Southwest. I was a student athlete in high school. I was a student athlete at Arizona State, like you were talking about, and I was fortunate enough to have represented the United States in 4, world championships and 2 Olympic games, like you said, and yeah, it was a wonderful experience for me. It certainly helped me out as an individual person because the things that I learned as a student and as an athlete certainly transitioned over as a business professional, certainly as a mentor and as a speaker.
Tell me a little bit about how you got into wrestling, Townsend. How did you find the sport?
Well, I probably, like most kids, I started out playing football. My dad used to love playing football, and he taught me how to play when I was really, really little. But, I actually stand about 5'5". I might be fudging a little bit, but I'm fairly short. And, once while I was in, I want to say about 7th or 8th grade, all my other classmates started growing up about a foot taller than I was. And I realized that maybe football is not for me. I had to find something else to do. And wrestling just kind of called to me.
Awesome. Town, you're short in height, brother, but you're tremendous in width and strength. That's why I call you the Town, and you've got that care of a champion, of a bear, my friend. Tell me a little bit about when you started to develop your wrestling skills, and when did you notice that you were becoming good and you had a bit of a talent there?
Yeah, well, my father was in the military, and I think I knew that I wanted to go off to college, and I thought my only opportunity to make it into a university was actually earn a scholarship. And so when I was a senior in high school is when I really took the sport very, very seriously and set a goal for myself to earn a scholarship, try to get into college somehow, because I knew that was probably a ticket to lead a better life. If you have an education, you have more of a chance of doing well in life. And so my senior year, I took the sport extremely seriously and looked at it almost like, it was a life and death situation. So if I was successful, then this could really turn out to be a good thing for me down the road, And if I failed, then there was not an option. I think that's where it really made a jump in my wrestling career.
For a young athlete that might be listening to this, or maybe for a parent, with a striving athlete, what are some lessons there? You said it was a life and death situation for you. Give us a quick lesson there, and then I want to ask you a few other questions.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think I might have shared this with you before, actually, Jeremiah. I actually ran away from home at a young age. I ran away from home at the age of 16, and I went to go live with my uncle in Southern California. And it was during that time that, I knew I wasn't going back home because that door was closed. I just was committed to not going back. And that's when I think I really made the commitment to really make something of. The only thing I really had was I knew how to wrestle. That was it. I didn't know how to do any other trade or anything. But yeah, I was fortunate enough to have come across some really good coaches in high school, and I made it to. I got a partial scholarship to Cal State Bakersfield. Got a lot of really good coaches in that wrestling room, and met a lot of really good people along the way. So I kept improving and kept getting better. in each wrestling room that I stopped into, and life's a journey like that, right? You keep kind of hitting those milestones and making progress, and eventually, when you look back, you might see that you actually walked quite a ways.
Yeah, awesome. Tell me a little bit about that journey initially in college, because you were a national champion before transitioning to ASU. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So I did win the national title at Cal State Bakersfield Division II, and at the time, Arizona State was actually a real hotbed for freestyle wrestling, and so there's a lot of really good athletes that wanted to come here to train at Arizona State. My coach actually at Cal State Bakersfield wanted to make the 1988 Olympic team, so he said he was coming, and so I said that I'm coming with you. And the '88 that was the year that ASU actually won the national title, and I had the red shirt that year because when I left Cal State Bakersfield, I wasn't released from my scholarship, so I had to sit out. And it actually was a really challenging time for me because, when you don't have a scholarship and you walk onto a team and you really have to do the sport because it's purely out of love. I wasn't receiving any income or any money from it, and so I was really challenged. And in fact, I was this close to quitting. And it was actually my father, who I didn't get along with in high school, who actually convinced me to stick with the sport. And he said that, there'll come a time when you won't really have an option. When your body just won't allow you to actually compete, in your sport. And so why don't you go ahead and take the opportunity right now while your body still can, and seize the moment, and take the sport for everything that it will give you. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up being good advice at the time.
That's awesome advice, and I know where you're at with your dad. We're in a similar space, my friend. That's awesome, Townsend. That got me right there. I want to go a little bit more with you to ASU. ASU, you dominated there, but you didn't dominate right away. Tell me a little bit about your learning lessons and some of your patience, and then that domination.
Yeah, sure. Well, like I said, ASU was a hotbed for wrestling, and so there's a lot of world-class athletes that were actually coming into the wrestling room to train to get ready for the '88 Olympic team and the '92 Olympic team. And so I was fortunate enough to have been around those type of guys, and so I took advantage of all of those coaches and all of those wonderful athletes that had a lot to offer, and I can remember specifically asking a lot of those coaches, hey, teach me something, teach me this, or teach me that. And eventually you get to the point where they just don't have anything else to give. I mean, they've given everything they can, and so to improve, you really kind of have to get creative. You really have to think outside the box to try to continue your progress and to continue to improve your technique, and continue to become an all-around better athlete. And so I went through a lot of different phases of traveling around the country and going to different competitions and trying to improve and really figuring out that I learned that I hated to run, right? Because my body's, got really short legs, so I can't stand running. But I did all kinds of other exercises for cross training. So, I can't swim, so I would jump into the pool and I'd get like a really good workout because I'm a terrible swimmer. I jump rope quite a bit. Inline skating, if anybody remembers those, inline skates, and airline bikes, stationary bikes, all kinds of other things I used to do to get in shape and get ready for the competition, because it was all about the competition at that time.
Townsend, that's tremendous. Who, at this point in your life, up to ASU, I guess, who would be your most impactful coach or training partner, or individual, maybe one of your family members at this point? Who was impacting a bit of this journey at this time?
It's hard to say just one. I mean, if I mention just a handful of names, I feel like I'll cut some people out, but there's one of the immediate mentors that I had was a first national champion for Bobby Douglas, Arizona State. His name was Eddie Urbano. And so he was kind of almost like a big brother figure as soon as I got to ASU's campus. And there's a list of heroes that I had, that you probably wouldn't recognize a lot of the names. Bobby Douglas was the head coach. Joe Gonzalez was the assistant coach. I had the heroes like Lee Kemp, John Smith, Kenny Monday. I mean, there's a list of people that there's not enough time for me to, and even in this interview, to list everybody, and give thanks to all the help that I had. One hero that I will mention this, Dave Schultz talked about. He was obviously a very accomplished wrestler. In fact, he was one of the persons that was kind of featured in a movie called Foxcatcher. So you probably heard of a movie called Foxcatcher. Dave Schultz was one of the characters in there. And I knew him personally. We traveled around in Russia a little bit. And I remember he said something about, if he won an Olympic gold medal in 1984, and he said if he had to give a piece of his medal to everybody that, you know, helped him reach that pinnacle of his success, that, you know, each person would get like a little grain of dust, because there's so many people that you'd have to acknowledge. And I certainly had a lot of that, a lot of people along the way, you know, from the time that I was first starting wrestling, you know, elementary school, really. You know, all the coaches and all the people that I touched along the way, I think they all contributed to that success.
That's awesome, Townsend. Tell me this, I guess. Who would be your favorite wrestler if you had to break it down and say Jer or Shark? I really like watching, you know, Lee or Dave, or who is it? Who do you like watching?
You know, there's a very accomplished wrestler right now. His name is Jordan Burroughs. He's got to be one of my favorite. He just won his 4th world title in Las Vegas, and you know, he won the Olympics in 2012, and so I actually had the opportunity to talk to him a little bit before the tournament, about a week before the tournament earlier this month. You know, he was here in town, and I asked him about the competition, because he's gone undefeated and he's only lost a couple times. Last year he actually lost, and so I was asking him about this tournament, how he felt about winning this tournament, and he said that he said something very interesting. He said that you know, he wasn't concerned about the actual outcome of the tournament itself, but he was more focused, hyper focused on his preparation, on his you know, his training, really, on you know, whether that's the workout partners or the diet, or, you know, the coaches, or the specific technique that he was working on. He honestly felt that if he took care of that, his daily, you know, routine, and perfected that, the outcomes would take care of themselves. The tournament will take care of itself. Sure enough, he ended up winning another world title. So he's definitely one of my favorites to watch as an athlete. He's all over the mat. He's just almost impossible to stop. And so, and plus he's wearing a red, white, and blue singlet. So how could you not love that, you know?
Yeah, awesome, Town. And when you were talking about the gold pieces, did you feel that way when you won the silver in '96, that you had a bunch of people within that medal and a part of that winning, and having the U.S. on your shoulder, so to speak? I remember that. I was in high school that year, my senior year.
Yeah, well, you know, I was fortunate that you know, that Olympic Games was in Atlanta, Georgia, and so it was in our home country. So you probably remember the Centennial bombings, but yeah, you know, it's kind of like one of those things that's bittersweet, Shark. You know, it's you're working so hard, and your goal is to win that gold medal, you know, and so, you know, they have the award ceremony. You're standing up on the podium, and it's right after the match, right? And so I just lost the gold medals the way I looked at it at the time. So I was crushed. I was devastated, you know, but, you know, it still was a tremendous honor to have represented the United States and to have won a medal, you know, and so that was certainly a, you know, a blessing, I guess, you know. So Russian flag came up right up on top, as the American flag was right underneath it. So that was definitely an honor. And it's one of those things that you just kind of realize after the fact, that, you know, when you come back home and you got so many people that, you know, were part of the Olympics, or they saw the Olympics, or like you said, you were in high school, you remember the Olympics, and so you just kind of realize that, you know, it's not just about the individual, it's not just about yourself. You're representing your country, you know, and so it's a little bit more than just the individual. You're representing, you know, everybody, and so it's more than just the individual, more than just yourself.
I've watched that fight a bit, that match, and I've seen the end, and I know you, and I know your character. And I know how hard that was, and what you gained from that, though, as a man and also as an athlete, Town. And in my book, you won that match. He ran from you. Russian ran. Let's just say that. But also, let's say this. Tell me what '92 gave you for '96. How did that prepare you, real quick, for that championship run?
Yeah, you know,